In this weekend, our today's spec in focus is what is currently the second better performing Melee DPS spec in the Midnight Beta and overall the fourth best DPS spec. We're talking about Survival Hunter. Survival is doing okay, is doing better than average when it comes to the raid, and it is amongst the best ones in Mythic Plus. Even if you look at the high level keys currently being completed in Mythic Plus, Survival is one of the best specs. So, since we are not even a month away from the release of the Midnight pre-patch that is coming out late January, players start wondering about which specs to play in Midnight based on what has changed from the War Within, based on how the specs are doing right now. So obviously, since we have a spec that is doing very well right now, many players would be curious to see why is it doing well, what has changed or what will change from the War Within. And Survival is an interesting one because a lot of things have changed from the War Within. It is one of the bigger ones in terms of reworks being given from one expansion to the other. So, for example, these are all of the things Survival is losing in its makeover. You are losing your kill shot and explosive shot, which used to be or still are part of your rotation toolkit. Many other of your shots and traps are going away. Almost the entire collection of your cooldowns, from flanking strike to coordinated assault, spearhead, fury of the eagle, all going away. You have gotten a complete makeover of your hero talent, Sentinel, as well as a few things added to you. So let's go by the first most important thing for Survival. The entire reason for your being as a spec in Midnight is to generate tip of the spear stacks with kill command and then consume them with other abilities that are not kill command. Very simply, kill command now is a spammable ability with no cooldown, no charges. It's your default button. Now, you don't even use it for damage because the damage of this button is extremely low, and not even for the focus it generates. You use it because casting kill command gives you a stack of tip of the spear. At the moment, because of how powerful tip of the spear is for your entire rotation, you are going to be playing with Primal Surge, which means you get 2 stacks of tip of the spear whenever you use kill command, and also tip of the spear buffs your next ability by more damage, 5% more. Because Sentinel also is the best hero talent right now, you have Can't Miss, Won't Miss, which is an extra 10% bonus damage to tip of the spear. So your 15% bonus damage to your next ability becomes 30% more damage to your next 2 abilities because of these 2 talents. Survival has also been given an extra button through your Apex talents. Your Raptor Strike, your default melee strike, which does a single target damage, now, thanks to your Apex talent, has a guaranteed chance to be upgraded into Raptor Swipe. And as the name suggests, Raptor Swipe is an AoE. It hits multiple enemies, unlike Raptor Strike, which only hits one. And more importantly, Raptor Swipes that benefit from tip of the spear. So when you're consuming a tip of the spear stack with Raptor Swipe, you're also going to provoke an additional Strike as 1 at 300% effectiveness. Strike as 1 is the follow-up to tip of the spear, which makes your pet also attack the enemy for bonus damage whenever you are attacking the enemy for bonus damage because you are consuming tip of the spear. This is what makes the follow-up to Raptor Strike so powerful, not only because it's obviously going to be very powerful in Mythic Plus because it is AoE damage compared to Raptor Strike, but also because it triggers Strike as 1 at 300% effectiveness. If you look at this, for example, you already see that the base damage of Raptor Strike is 35k, but the base damage of Raptor Swipe is 88k. It's 2.5 times more damage because you use it most of the time in AoE. And then you look at the pet damage and you're like, interesting, pets doing decent damage even for Survival in Midnight. It's not actually pet damage, it's just all Strike as 1. It's just all the bonus damage you do when you consume a tip of the spear stack with your pet. And this is boosted, obviously, when you are consuming it with Raptor Swipe because of your Apex talents. Your extra 2 buttons introduced in Midnight are going to be Boomstick and Flamefang Pitch. These are 2 pseudo minor cooldowns. Boomstick is sort of this kind of Fury of the Eagle, constant channeled flurry of blows, except now it's not a spear anymore, it's a shotgun. And Flame Fan Pitch is like Flame Strike, like the follow-up flame on the ground of Flame Strike, the ticking dot on the ground of Flame Strike, which are, as we mentioned, cooldowns. Flame Fan Pitch has a 1-minute cooldown without really any ways to reduce the cooldown of the spell. You do have multiple ways to reduce the cooldown of Boomstick, because Boomstick already has a base cooldown reduction talent by 15 seconds, and also, more importantly, Lethal Calibration talent makes you reduce the cooldown of Boomstick by 2 seconds per enemy hit by Wildfire Bomb. So as long as you are in AoE, in Mythic Plus, hitting 5 enemies, it's a 10-second cooldown reduction to your shotgun every time you drop your Wildfire Bomb. Now, this entire mechanic of wanting to consume Tip of the Spear stacks because they make your next spell do 30% more damage, and those stacks being generated by your kill command, it creates this flowing rotation which looks something like this. You use the first weak part of your Raptor Strike combo because it does the least amount of damage and you don't want it to be buffed by Tip of the Spear. Then you use kill command to give you your stacks of Tip of the Spear, and then you consume the stacks with good spells. You consume them with the Raptor Swipe upgrade of Raptor Strike, and then with Boomstick. Then you have no more stacks of Tip of the Spear, so you kill command again, and then you consume them with Wildfire Bomb and Flame Fan Pitch, and then you have no more stacks, so you kill command and you consume them with your Wildfire Bomb and your cooldown, Takedown. Even if you don't have these cooldowns, because Boomstick has a long cooldown, Flame Fan Pitch has a long cooldown, Takedown has a long cooldown, so you're in a situation where you just used those cooldowns and you don't have them anymore in your rotation, the base combo is to use your Raptor Strike before kill command. After you have finished spending your stacks and before you get to create new stacks, you use your Raptor Strike. So it's Raptor Strike, kill command, upgraded version of Raptor Strike and Wildfire Bomb, then you Raptor Strike and kill command, upgraded version of Raptor Strike and Wildfire Bomb again, and then Raptor Strike and kill command. This time it's Wildfire Bomb and Flame Fan Pitch, and then again Raptor Strike and kill command, and now it's Raptor Swipe and Boomstick. It essentially pairs together, you essentially tie together Raptor Strike and kill command, so that you never spend your Tip of the Spear stacks with Raptor Strike, because as we have seen, based on the damage that you do in Mythic Plus, hitting multiple enemies, the base damage of Raptor Strike is 35k, the base damage of Flame Fan Pitch is 270, the base damage of Raptor Swipe is 89k, and then you have, what, 1.2 million for Boomstick and over 250, 260k for Wildfire Bomb. So obviously, which one of these spells do you not care about being empowered from Tip of the Spear? It's obviously this one, it's Raptor Strike. So you're trying essentially your best to not really have to spend your Tip of the Spear stack with Raptor Strike because it does the most pathetic damage. Obviously, this will not be possible to keep up all the time because eventually you will have all your Wildfire Bomb charges on cooldown, your Boomstick on cooldown, your Flame Fan Pitch on cooldown, so all you have left will be your strikes. So you will be consuming them eventually, some of these stacks of Tip of the Spear with Raptor Strike base low damage, but whenever you can, whenever you have these cooldowns available, whenever you have your charges of Wildfire Bomb available, you want to avoid spending your Tip of the Spear stacks with Raptor Strike. And this is everything that needs to be said about survival and about the rotation. There is nothing else of note about the spec. It's just how you manage the Tip of the Spear stacks and try, or rather remind yourself, to consume them with your hardest hitting abilities. So you have this priority system, right? This system of hardest hitting being Boomstick, second hardest hitting being Flame Fan Pitch, and then Wildfire Bomb, based on AoE situations. In single target, it's much more acceptable to spend your charges with Raptor Strike, because it still does good damage in single target, but in AoE, in Mythic Plus, less so. Now, what are the problems of this rework now that we have the rotation on lock? Because at first glance, the rotation is actually cool. It's actually nice to weave the stacks of tip of the spear and try to consume them properly. See your stacks go up every time you kill command, see the stacks being consumed by the correct abilities. It's a nice flow to the rotation, but there are some problems. Problem number one is what you see here. The economy of your focus, the economy of your resource is awful. It's awful because it might as well not exist. What you're seeing in this clip is me correctly generating tip of the spear stacks and always consuming them properly, and my focus doesn't go down. My focus, I think, peaks to a lowest of like 70 at most out of 125. That's how low it goes. Focus is essentially a non-issue as a resource in your spec. Your cooldowns don't really cost much. Flame Fan Pitch has no cost. Takedown even gives you focus. Instead of costing focus, it gives you 50 focus back. You have Wildfire Bomb, which costs no focus. Kill Command, of course, costs no focus. It gives you 20 focus. You have Boomstick, which does cost 30 focus, but it's also a 2.5 second channel. So most of the focus you spend on Boomstick, you gain back regenerating it as you are channeling Boomstick, and then all you have left is the 30 focus cost of Raptor Strike and 20 focus cost of Raptor Swipe. These costs basically are not enough to make the resource worth anything. You just play as if it didn't exist. You never have to actually worry. You're not pooling energy before the cooldowns. There is no thought behind it. There is no, making sure you have the resource before you pop your CDs or before you go into this big window of your takedown cooldown, etc., etc. The resource isn't really a factor in your rotation at all. So they could have, done a little bit better, maybe perhaps increasing the damage of your abilities, but also increasing the cost of your focus, and making it more rewarding for you to properly use your focus to gain more damage, because you didn't starve yourself of focus when you didn't need to, for example, etc., etc. But as it is right now, focus is essentially a meme. The other problem, which has been a long problem since this was introduced, is that Blizzard gave Survival the ability to dual wield one-handed weapons. The problem is, this is practically a 5+% DPS loss, even if you try to take some of the talents that benefit dual wielding. For example, Wildfire Imbuement, which makes your auto attacks do fire damage per hit. So obviously, as you dual wield, you attack faster, you attack more times, so you do more damage with this talent, but overall it is still a massive DPS loss because the base weapon damage that multiplies and calculates the damage of your base abilities isn't counting the offhand damage of your dual wielding weapons, which is obviously going to end up doing less damage than a two-handed weapon, so it makes it terrible. Well, you could say, well, who cares? I'm just not going to be dual wielding. Doesn't affect me. It will affect your end of Mythic class cash loot, and it will affect your Great Vault, because now all of these useless one-handed weapons will be available as part of your loot table, which becomes a problem if that type of playstyle dual wielding is completely worthless. The other issue leads us to our talent tree. What's the issue here is actually two different ones. One issue is to your main button, your takedown. So takedown could be a super good button because it can do a significant chunk of damage burst, instant damage. You can get takedown down to having only a 1-minute cooldown. You can also have it generate 3 stacks of tip of the spear immediately, so you can just consume them all and then take down to get your cap, your 3 stacks cap immediately, and then you can also get it to do AoE damage. Instead of hitting 1 target, it can now do 50% more damage and then hit 5 targets total. Now this would be great. If you look at the damage here, it looks pathetic, right? It looks super low in an entire Mythic class key. But with these talents, first of all, you increase the damage by 50%, so now it's doing like 130k DPS, and then it's not hitting 1 target, it's hitting 5 targets in AoE, so it's not 130k damage, it's doing 650k damage per use, and then you're not using this every 90 seconds, you're using this every minute. So the amount of uses here would be closer to the duration of the key. Would be like 28, 29 uses instead of 16. This would bring takedown alone all the way up to nearly 20k DPS as a button. It will bring it around here, from being all the way down here. Now, what's the problem and why isn't this being done? Are these players dumb? They're not dumb. The problem is that to get there, to make it so good, you have to spend a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4 talent points to gain all of these benefits. 4 talent points just to buff this button is too much right now. You just lose too much damage. You simply don't have the points to actually spend them into all of these good things for takedown. So as it is, it remains a very weak cooldown. 90-second cooldown to get an 8-second buff. It becomes a 10-second buff just because you are Sentinel. And the buff is a 20% damage amp. It's not like great. That's the one of the problems in terms of cooldowns. The other problem is bleeds. I don't know what Blizzard was planning here. You have one talent which turns your Wildfire Bomb into a bleed, and then you have the old Bloodseeker to give you attack speed based on the amount of bleeds you have out, and then you have bleeds extra based on your kill command crits, and then you have bleeds effects dealing 8% more damage, and then you have each dot on a target increases the critical strike damage they receive from you. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bleed effects, which are all garbage. They're all like not taken. It's just too much of a damage loss. None of these actually do enough for you to be worth taking, even if you were playing the much weaker version of Survival, which is Pack Leader, which does have an extra bleed because the bear, the charge of the bear does create an extra bleed in your damage profile. It's still not enough. So essentially you have these talents plus these talents, which are all like untakeable right now, as well as this one, which is specifically for dual wielding and faster auto attacking, which, as we said, dual wielding right now is awful. So you have all of these plus all of these, which are just not good enough, essentially, which leaves you with just about no other option than this talent setup right now as a survival hunter. And this same setup is pretty much confirmed even when it comes to hero talents. Sentinel has been fully reworked to work with your toolkit. Pack Leader has not. Pack Leader is more or less the same. You still have your beasts being summoned every 30 seconds, which still do the same things, and then you still have the bonuses of Kill Command and Raptor Strike, reducing the cooldown of the spawn of the beasts, and then you have the spawn of the beasts, reducing the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb. And the final point, the big payoff of this, is based on your takedown cooldown. Takedown gives you Whole of the Pack, makes you summon the Stampede to do extra AoE damage, but there's a problem. We just mentioned the button is bad. We just mentioned it's not even worth to be talenting into things around this button, including the cooldown reduction, which would be very good, obviously, if you're playing with Pack Leader and you want to benefit from this as much as you can. You would like to reduce the cooldown of takedown, so this Stampede happens more often. But takedown is bad, so you don't bother with the cooldown reduction, which also makes Pack Leader awful. What makes Sentinel much stronger is that while Pack Leader is focusing on a poor button, what Sentinel is focusing on is on consuming tip of the spear stacks, which I'm sure you got the point by now is the core of your entire spec. And the buff you gain from consuming these tip of the spear stacks and proccing the effect is a massive 130% damage increase to the main target of your Wildfire Bomb. So your main passive effect and your main button is what Sentinel is buffing. It's buffing it significantly because it increases the tip of the spear proc chance from 20 to 30%. It also increases the tip of the spear bonus damage from 15 to 25%, which you then turn to 30% because of Perma Surge. It does also give you a massive damage boost to the weak takedown button itself without needing to actually talent into this, because it does give you Moonlight Chakram, and it does do a lot of damage, Moonlight Chakram. And then the final point is the extra AoE, which is good damage. Overall, in Mythic class, this alone by itself will be a decent chunk of extra damage you can get. So the hero talent itself right now is a no-brainer between these two. Which one is better, especially becomes progressively better when it comes to Mythic Plus and multiple targets when it comes to Sentinel. The last of the problems of survival is the rotation. Very simply back to the beginning. We mentioned the good loop, the good flow, the up and down and the bob and weave of create, tip of the spear, consume, tip of the spear, create, consume that you get. That kind of flow, which can be sort of chill, can be satisfying, can be a smooth experience, but sure, it does lack something. It does lack any kind of procs, any kind of resets to abilities you don't use often, or empowerments of abilities you don't use often to make them useful once in a while, or some setups, like, you know, the setups of building up perhaps certain dot stacks or buff stacks on yourself, enabling a certain ability, any kind of variety in your rotation, any kind of nuance, any kind of unique thing in your rotation. Because right now it's always the same. It's always press kill command, consume it in order of the more important abilities. So your big cooldown takedown, then boomstick, then flame fan pitch, then wildfire bomb, then raptor swipe, and at the very end raptor strike. That's always the same. It will never ever change, and you will always follow this spreadsheet of priority in how you spend your tip of the spear stacks, and that's it. That's sort of the main accusation to the rotation of survival right now. It's very smooth, very flowing, straight and narrow in a single path, which can be relaxing and enjoyable, but it would kind of need something extra to work very well. I guess this would be the main complaint, above the talents and the disappointing ones, above the two-hander versus dual wielding problem, as well as your resource, your focus being pretty much right now a cosmetic, not really doing anything for you as a spec. Besides this, spec is looking good, is doing tons of damage. Don't look for it if you're looking for a specific niche role in Mythic Plus keys. This is not the prio damage kind of spec. When we say it's doing good in Mythic Plus, it's doing good damage, etc, etc. This is an AoE spec. The prio damage, like here, survival doesn't really do prior damage, doesn't really get extra bonus damage on the main target with big HP, like, as you see here, Arcane Mage can do. Survival is just blanket, flat AoE at the moment. It is still, though, looking good, and it still was worth going over the state of survival so far, because it has been so popular and played with good results in the beta of Midnight so far, both in the raid and in Mythic Plus. So, with this, on this, I think, Saturday, it is now time to leave each other. We're starting our goodbyes as usual by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who's been supporting Competitive for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I think it went a bit overboard. We were well over 20 minutes again. Sometimes we really just need to stop talking